Most women underestimate just how much can be revealed in the very first moments of interaction with a man. You may think of a greeting as just a polite exchange of words, a hey, a smile, a nod of acknowledgement. But the truth is far more layered. The first 5 seconds of how a man greets you can tell you more about how he feels than an hour-long conversation ever could. Why? Because those moments happen before his rational mind has time to craft a mask. They are pure, unfiltered, and charged with emotion. Think about it. In those opening seconds, his eyes, his tone, his posture, even the way he breathes. All of these small details give away what is stirring inside him. His conscious mind may want to play it cool, but his unconscious body language rarely lies. Carljung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In relationships, this truth is everywhere. Men reveal what they feel, often without intending to, through subtle unconscious expressions. The window into his energy. When a man is genuinely excited to see you, you don't just hear a word like, hey. You feel a shift. His voice carries warmth, his eyes light up, his posture straightens, his energy expands in your direction. It's as if your presence realigns the room. Jung believed that energy, what he called libido, is not only sexual but also psychic. That psychic energy often shows itself in the presence of someone who matters deeply. In that initial greeting, a man's libido is directed towards you, whether he admits it or not. And when he's crazy about you, it's unmistakable. He doesn't just acknowledge you, he welcomes you. There's urgency in his presence, a softness in his face, and a current in his tone that tells you you're not just another person in the room. You are the one his unconscious has been waiting for. The mask and the moment before it. Here's the paradox. Men, especially in the early stages of attraction, often struggle to put their feelings into words. Vulnerability feels risky, so they protect themselves with charm, casualness, or even aloofness. But before those defenses click in, there's always a raw, unscripted moment. The greeting. That's where his truth leaks out. Think of the greeting as the space before the mask. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This is especially true in those initial seconds. If there is genuine attraction, the greeting becomes charged, transformative, almost alchemical. His unconscious cannot help but respond to your presence. What happens in his brain? To understand this better, let's look at the science. When a man feels drawn to you, his brain releases dopamine, the chemical of pleasure and reward. That surge sharpens his attention, speeds up his heartbeat, and makes him hyper-aware of every detail. Suddenly, you are not just another face. You are the focus. His pupils may dilate, his voice may soften or deepen, and he may unconsciously lean closer. His body has already decided you matter before his mind has figured out what to say. This is instinct at work. Attraction is not just a choice. It is a physiological response, and those responses show themselves most clearly in greetings, because greetings are unrehearsed. A man can plan a text message. He can rehearse a compliment. But when you walk into the room, his nervous system reacts before he can hide it. Signs of attraction in the greeting. Let's break down what you might notice. 1. Eyes that light up. Not just polite recognition, but genuine delight. His eyes soften, brighten, and stay on you longer than necessary. Jung often referred to the eyes as portals to the unconscious, and here they reveal more than words ever could. 2. Shifts in posture. He straightens, squares his shoulders, or subtly leans in. This is his body signaling interest and presence. 3. Tone of voice. His hey isn't flat. It carries texture, warmth, urgency, or softness. The unconscious is speaking through sound. 4. Nervous energy. He fidgets, adjusts his clothes, or stumbles slightly in his words. Far from disinterest, this often means he cares too much. 5. Personalization. He recalls a detail about your life, right in his greeting. Hey, how was your meeting today? This is not small talk. This is selective memory, a sure sign of affection. Attraction isn't always confident. It's important to note that not all interest looks the same. Some men are bold, They greet you with a glow that leaves no doubt. Others get clumsy, awkward, even overly casual. You might think he barely noticed you, when in reality he was so busy overthinking every move that he ended up underplaying it. Jung said, "Where love rules there is no will to power, and where power predominates, there love is lacking." What he meant is that love disarms. It removes the armor. For some men, that disarmament shows up as confidence. For others, it shows up as nervousness. Both can be signs of real interest, emotional safety in his greeting. Another overlooked factor is how emotionally safe a man feels with you. If he senses warmth, openness, and non-judgment in your energy, his greeting will be more authentic. He may drop his guard, revealing more of his true feelings. But if he feels judged, rushed, or unsure, he may cloak his emotions behind a neutral hello. A greeting, then, is not just about him. It's also about the emotional field you co-create in that moment. The eyes as a mirror. Let's linger on the eyes for a moment, because they are one of the most telling parts of a greeting. Jung believed in the power of symbols, and the eyes are symbolic of perception, soul, and connection. When a man is emotionally drawn to you, his gaze lingers. It's not just a glance, it's presence. He's not scanning the room. He's absorbing you. That moment of locked eye contact, even if brief, is often louder than any confession. And here's the paradox again. A man who avoids your gaze entirely might not be uninterested. He may be overwhelmed. He may fear that his eyes will betray too much. Context is everything. But when his eyes soften, linger, or widen at the sight of you, that's instinctual, that's unconscious, and that's real. Words can lie, energy rarely does. In the end, it's not about the word hey, it's about the energy underneath. The greeting is the unconscious saying what the conscious mind may not yet dare to speak. This is why women with strong intuition often feel the truth before they logically know it. You might not be able to explain why, but you sense it. The flicker of a smile, the quick inhale, the way his whole presence shifts when you arrive. Jung would call this the language of the unconscious. And when you learn to listen to it, you stop second-guessing yourself. You stop overanalyzing texts and start reading the energy right in front of you. So the next time you wonder if a man is truly interested, don't look for grand gestures or rehearsed lines. Look at the greeting. Look at his eyes, his tone, his posture, his presence. Those first few seconds are a direct line into his unconscious feelings. And if you train yourself to see it, you'll never miss the truth again. As Jung put it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For a man in love, his greeting is the one place where, for just a moment, he cannot help but be who he truly is. There is a reason people say, the eyes are the window to the soul. No matter how much someone tries to control their words, their eyes often reveal the truth first. When it comes to attraction, this couldn't be more accurate. Before a man even opens his mouth to greet you, his eyes have already spoken. And if you know how to read them, you can discover a truth he might never admit out loud. Carljung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." That wisdom applies to relationships too. When a man looks at you, his eyes reflect not only his feelings for you but also his inner world, his longings, his fears, his unconscious projections, the biological response of attraction. Science backs this up. When a man is attracted to someone, his pupils may dilate, his blink rate may shift, and his gaze lingers longer than it does with others. None of this is conscious. His nervous system reacts before he can even try to appear composed. Think of it this way. His body already knows you matter before his mind has caught up. That's why his gaze feels different from a passing glance. It carries weight, focus, and a kind of vulnerability. The difference between a glance and presence. There's a crucial distinction between a glance and full presence. A glance is quick, polite, transactional. It moves on easily. Presence lingers. Presence pauses. Presence absorbs. When a man greets you and his eyes soften, widen, or scan your face slowly as though memorizing it, that's not coincidence. That's his unconscious choosing to stay with you in that moment. It's attraction rising to the surface before he can filter it. Jung believed the unconscious always finds a way to speak, often in symbols and slips. A lingering gaze is one such symbol. It's a moment where his unconscious bypasses his mask, projection, and why his eyes betray him. Jung had a profound insight into relationships. We project parts of ourselves onto others. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. He wrote, the reverse is also true. Everything we admire or are drawn to in others is often a reflection of something within us. When a man looks at you with intensity, it may not just be about you. He may be seeing in you qualities his unconscious longs for. Warmth, beauty, mystery, safety, or a spark of life he has suppressed in himself. His gaze becomes the mirror of his projection. That's why attraction often feels so electric. It's not just two people looking at each other. It's two unconscious worlds colliding, searching for recognition. Signs in his eyes you can trust. So what exactly should you watch for in his eyes during that first greeting? 1. The light-up effect. His face brightens instantly when he sees you. This isn't just friendliness, it's joy. His nervous system is celebrating your presence. 2. Lingering contact. He doesn't just glance. He holds the gaze a beat longer than necessary. That extra second is everything. 3. The stunned pause. Sometimes attraction makes a man freeze. He may hesitate before speaking. His eyes caught in yours as though he forgot what he planned to say. 4. Softened expression. Instead of sharp or distant eyes, there's warmth, openness, even tenderness in how he looks at you. 5. The return look. If he looks away quickly but then immediately looks back, that's intrigue mixed with shyness. His unconscious pulls him toward you even if his conscious tries to retreat. Emotional connection in the gaze. There's another layer beyond physical attraction. Emotional connection. A man who feels safe and drawn to you doesn't just look at you. He looks into you. His gaze feels different. It's slower, more intentional, as if he's listening with his eyes. In these moments, you may feel as though time slows down. The noise of the room fades, and for a second, it's just the two of you. This is not imagination. It's energy. Jung believed that when two psyches connect deeply, an invisible field forms between them. You feel it as magnetic presence. His eyes are the doorway into that field. When the gaze wanders, of course the opposite is also telling. If during a greeting his eyes are darting around the room, checking his phone or avoiding contact altogether, he may be emotionally unavailable. This doesn't always mean disinterest. Sometimes it means distraction or insecurity. But it's important to note the difference. Real interest focuses, fake interest wanders. Vulnerability in his eyes. One of the most revealing signs of true attraction is vulnerability. You may notice a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, almost like a child who wants to be chosen. This is powerful because it shows he is emotionally invested. Jung observed that the unconscious often reveals our deepest, childlike needs through relationships. When his eyes soften in your presence, it may be his inner child silently asking, "Will you accept me?" The dance of eye contact. Eye contact during a greeting often becomes a dance. He looks. You look. He looks again. If the energy feels charged, playful, or tender, this is the unconscious conversation happening beneath the words. Sometimes a simple shared glance can hold more intimacy than an entire evening of talking. Jung believed the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. A single look in this sense can be transformative, your role in the exchange. But here's something many women overlook. Your eyes matter just as much as his. When you greet him, your gaze also communicates your openness, warmth, or boundaries. If you hold his eyes for just a second longer, smile softly, or let your presence rest with him, you amplify his attraction and signal emotional safety. This is not about manipulation. It's about resonance. When your energy is grounded and receptive, his unconscious feels permitted to drop its guard. His eyes will then reveal even more. So the next time a man greets you, don't just listen to his words. Look into his eyes. Notice if they brighten, soften, linger, or betray a flicker of nervousness. Notice if they carry presence or distraction, because his eyes will almost always speak. The truth his lips are too careful to reveal. They tell the story of his unconscious attraction, his hidden longings, and sometimes even his deepest fears. Jung once said, "The soul, in its innermost nature, is always feminine." When you, as a woman, learn to read the eyes of a man with intuition and openness, you are reading the soul itself, his unconscious made visible. And when you master that art, you'll never again wonder, does he feel something for me? You'll see it written clearly in the gaze he cannot control. If the eyes are the window to a man's soul, then his voice is the doorway into his heart. You can learn a great deal from the words he chooses, but the real truth hides underneath, in how he says them. A greeting might seem simple. Hey, hi, what's up? But when a man is truly crazy about you, those words are never just words. His voice carries emotion that slips past his conscious control. The tone, the rhythm, the hesitation, even the tremble. All of these are the unconscious whispering what the conscious hasn't dared to admit. Carljung once wrote, "The shadow is that hidden, repressed, for the most part inferior and guilt-laden personality, whose ultimate ramifications reach back into the realm of our animal ancestors." In other words, there are parts of ourselves we keep hidden, not only the dark, but also the tender, vulnerable, deeply human parts. When a man greets you, his shadow often reveals itself in his voice. Why his voice changes around you. When a man feels attracted, his body releases adrenaline and dopamine. These chemicals don't just affect his eyes or posture, they affect his vocal cords. His pitch may rise or fall, his breath may quicken, and his words may spill out faster or slower than usual. These subtle shifts are not rehearsed. They are biological responses to excitement and emotional investment. Have you ever noticed a man speaking normally to others, but when he greets you, his voice suddenly feels different? Softer, warmer, maybe even more energized? That's not random. That's resonance. His unconscious has placed you in a different category. You matter more. The stretch of your name. One of the biggest giveaways is how he says your name. If he draws it out a little longer, softens it, or infuses it with warmth, it's because your name has become emotionally charged for him. In Jungian terms, you've become what he might call an anima figure, the representation of feminine energy that awakens him emotionally. Your name, spoken by him, becomes a symbol. And symbols carry weight in the unconscious. That's why it feels different when he says it with tenderness compared to when someone else does. Pauses and stumbles, the shadow leaks out. Sometimes the truth isn't in what he says, but in the pauses before he says it. If he greets you with a hesitation, a breath, a stutter, a throat clear, it's often because his body is trying to catch up with his feelings. The pause is his shadow whispering, "Careful, this matters to you." He may stumble over a word, laugh nervously, or rush his greeting. Far from indifference, these slips are proof of emotional weight. Jung noted that the shadow often reveals itself in small, unconscious mistakes, what Freud called slips of the tongue. A man who feels nothing for you doesn't slip. He's too composed. A man who feels deeply can't always hide the disruption you cause. If the eyes are the window to a man's soul, then his voice is the doorway into his heart. You can learn a great deal from the words he chooses, but the real truth hides underneath, in how he says them. A greeting might seem simple. Hey, hi, what's up? But when a man is truly crazy about you, those words are never just words. His voice carries emotion that slips past his conscious control. The tone, the rhythm, the hesitation, even the tremble. All of these are the unconscious whispering what the conscious hasn't dared to admit. Carljung once wrote, "The shadow is that hidden, repressed, for the most part inferior and guilt-laden personality, whose ultimate ramifications reach back into the realm of our animal ancestors." In other words, there are parts of ourselves we keep hidden, not only the dark, but also the tender, vulnerable, deeply human parts. When a man greets you, his shadow often reveals itself in his voice. Why his voice changes around you. When a man feels attracted, his body releases adrenaline and dopamine. These chemicals don't just affect his eyes or posture, They affect his vocal cords. His pitch may rise or fall, his breath may quicken, and his words may spill out faster or slower than usual. These subtle shifts are not rehearsed. They are biological responses to excitement and emotional investment. Have you ever noticed a man speaking normally to others, but when he greets you, his voice suddenly feels different? Softer, warmer, maybe even more energized? That's not random. That's resonance. His unconscious has placed you in a different category. You matter more. The stretch of your name. One of the biggest giveaways is how he says your name. If he draws it out a little longer, softens it, or infuses it with warmth, it's because your name has become emotionally charged for him. In Jungian terms, you've become what he might call an anima figure, the representation of feminine energy that awakens him emotionally. Your name, spoken by him, becomes a symbol. And symbols carry weight in the unconscious. That's why it feels different when he says it with tenderness compared to when someone else does. Pauses and stumbles, the shadow leaks out. Sometimes the truth isn't in what he says, but in the pauses before he says it. If he greets you with a hesitation, a breath, a stutter, a throat clear, it's often because his body is trying to catch up with his feelings. The pause is his shadow whispering, "Careful, this matters to you." He may stumble over a word, laugh nervously, or rush his greeting. Far from indifference, these slips are proof of emotional weight. Jung noted that the shadow often reveals itself in small, unconscious mistakes, what Freud called slips of the tongue. A man who feels nothing for you doesn't slip. He's too composed. A man who feels deeply can't always hide the disruption you cause. Volume and depth. Another signal lies in his vocal volume and depth. Some men unconsciously raise their voice a little when greeting a woman they like. It's a primal form of signaling, a way of saying, "Notice me." Others do the opposite. They lower their voice into a softer, more intimate tone, as though creating a private channel just for you. Both patterns reveal attraction. The first is extroverted energy, broadcasting presence. The second is introverted energy, pulling you into closeness. Nervous laughter and shifts in rhythm. A man who likes you may laugh lightly when greeting you, even if nothing funny was said. That laughter is his nervous system releasing energy. He may also change his rhythm, speaking faster, slower, or with uneven pacing. These disruptions to his usual speech pattern are signals that you have stirred something in him. Think of it this way. When a person is emotionally neutral, their voice is steady, predictable. When they are emotionally activated, their voice becomes less controlled, more human. That less polished sound isn't weakness, it's authenticity. Jung's shadow and his hidden desire. The shadow is not only the dark side of a man, it's also the place where his deepest longings hide. Many men are taught to suppress vulnerability, tenderness, or desire. But the voice doesn't lie. When he greets you, you may hear the part of him that longs for closeness, but doesn't yet know how to say it. That's why his tone may sound different with you than with anyone else. His unconscious has assigned you meaning, Jung observed. The meeting with oneself is, at first, the meeting with one's own shadow. When a man greets you with a voice that trembles or warms unexpectedly, he may be meeting parts of himself he usually hides. You are pulling them to the surface. The personal greeting versus the generic one. There's also a clear distinction between generic greetings and personal ones. A man who feels neutral may offer a flat "hey" or "what's up," but when he's emotionally invested, his greeting shifts. He personalizes. He uses your name, asks something specific, or adjusts his tone in a way that feels like it's meant for you and you alone. These are what I call emotional fingerprints. Small vocal cues that reveal you are different, that you matter. Listening with intuition. The key is not to listen only with your ears, but with your intuition. A greeting may be short, but if his voice carries warmth, if his rhythm falters slightly, if he stretches your name like it belongs to him, then you are hearing his unconscious at work. Jung often emphasized the power of intuition in understanding the hidden. The psyche is partly conscious and partly unconscious. The unconscious part, if not made conscious, rules us. When you train your intuition, you hear the unconscious in his tone, the part of him he isn't even fully aware of, what it means for you. So, what do you do when you notice these shifts? The most powerful response isn't to overanalyze, but to receive. Match his warmth with your own. If his tone is tender, soften yours in return. If he greets you with energy, allow yourself to mirror a little of it back. This doesn't mean faking interest. It means creating resonance. When he feels his unconscious vulnerability is safe with you, he is more likely to drop his guard. That's when real connection begins. Words can be rehearsed. Gestures can be staged. But the voice is harder to disguise. It carries the emotional undercurrent he cannot fully control. The greeting, spoken in his voice, becomes an echo of everything he feels but hasn't yet put into words. Sometimes it's in the pause. Sometimes it's in the warmth. Sometimes it's in the way your name sounds different on his lips. Carljung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." For a man who is falling for you, his voice betrays that journey. He may not consciously accept his feelings yet, but his tone will speak them anyway. And if you learn to hear the shadow in his greeting, you'll never again doubt whether he feels something real. Notice how he respects your boundaries while seeking closeness. This balance reflects both attraction and his comfort level with vulnerability. Jung believed that the unconscious expresses itself in ritual and gesture. A man who instinctively gestures toward you is unconsciously signaling presence, care and interest, nervous energy and fidgeting. Not all signals of attraction are smooth or confident. Sometimes the intensity of feeling creates nervous energy. Adjusting clothing, running a hand through hair, shifting weight from foot to foot, these are signs of heightened arousal. Far from being negative, these behaviors reveal investment. Jung considered such unconscious expressions as the psyche, attempting to reconcile conscious inhibition with instinctual desires. In other words, his body can't lie. It betrays what his mind is trying to control. The archetypal pull. Jung often spoke of the collective unconscious, universal patterns and archetypes that shape human behavior. Attraction is deeply influenced by these archetypal energies. When a man is drawn to you, he may unconsciously enact aspects of these archetypes. The protector warrior, standing tall, facing you fully, creating a subtle sense of safety. The lover, softening his shoulders, leaning in, showing vulnerability and emotional warmth. The explorer, showing curiosity through small gestures, attentive posture, and alert energy toward your movements. These archetypal behaviors manifest in body language without conscious intention. Recognizing them allows you to see attraction at the level of instinct, beyond words or conscious reasoning. The magnetic field of energy. Beyond posture and gestures, there is a more elusive signal: energy. Energy is the subtle field we sense but rarely name. When a man is attracted, his energy shifts toward yours. It may feel like gravity, a quiet pull that draws you in. His presence becomes heavier, warmer, and more attuned to your own energy. Women often notice this intuitively. A man's energy tells you about his feelings even when he hasn't yet formed the words. Jung emphasized that the unconscious communicates symbolically. Energy is one of the most profound symbols of emotional state. When his energy aligns with yours, his greeting becomes more than words. It becomes an exchange of psychic resonance. How to read the whole picture. To decode attraction fully, observe multiple layers at once. 1. Eyes, soft, lingering, focused, bright. 2. Voice, warm, intentional, slightly altered in rhythm or tone. 3. Posture, aligned toward you, confident, open. 4. Proximity, leaning in subtly, mirroring your movements. 5. Touch, respectful, instinctive gestures of connection. 6. Energy, magnetic, attentive, resonant with your presence. When all these signals converge, the unconscious has spoken. His greeting, though brief, becomes a map of his attraction and emotional state. The gift of awareness. The most important thing you can do is not overanalyze or chase these signals. Instead, receive them with presence. Jung wrote, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Recognize the signals for what they are, and meet them with grounded awareness." Your response: calm, open, and intuitive, reinforces emotional safety and allows the attraction to flow naturally. You don't need to manipulate or overperform. Simply being present and receptive creates a space where his unconscious can continue to reveal itself, building intimacy without words. The body speaks before the mind can filter, before words can be rehearsed. Posture, energy, gestures, and subtle proximity reveal what his conscious mind may hide. Jung's insights remind us that these unconscious expressions are rooted in archetypes, instinct, and deeper psychic resonance. When a man is attracted, his body announces it, even if he's unaware. And when you, as a woman, recognize and honor these signals with grounded presence, you create the emotional safety that allows his unconscious to emerge fully. By now, you've learned that a man's greeting is never just a word. It's an intricate dance of eyes, voice, body, and energy. If you've been paying attention, you've seen the sparks of interest in his gaze, the subtle shifts in his tone, the instinctive alignment of his body, and the magnetic pull of his energy. The final question is, what do you do with all of that? How do you respond in a way that honors both yourself and the subtle truth he's revealing? Carljung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." The principle applies here. His unconscious signals are a mirror. How you respond reflects your own self-awareness, confidence, and emotional intelligence. Seeing without chasing. One of the most common mistakes is overanalyzing or chasing clarity. You notice his lingering gaze, the warmth in his tone, or the way his body subtly shifts toward you, and immediately try to define what it means. But attraction is not always linear. A man may be nervous, shy, or inexperienced in expressing his feelings. That doesn't make his interest any less real. The key is to observe without chasing. Recognize the energy he gives, appreciate it, and allow the moment to unfold naturally. Reflecting energy with grace. Your response should mirror his energy without overcompensating. If he greets you with warmth, return warmth. If he softens his voice, respond with calm attentiveness. Jung emphasized the importance of balance and integration, just as his unconscious reveals itself in instinctual gestures. Your own conscious presence can create emotional resonance. For example, if he says your name with tenderness, smile genuinely and let your gaze meet his. If he leans in subtly, acknowledge his presence without forcing closeness. If his energy feels nervous or excited, remain grounded and centered. By reflecting his energy, you create emotional safety. You signal that his unconscious expression is noticed and welcomed, which encourages deeper connection, appreciation without overgiving. It's crucial to respond with recognition, not overinvestment. You can acknowledge his effort and presence without losing your self-respect. A simple verbal or nonverbal cue can do this. "It's always nice to see you." A gentle smile that reaches your eyes. A brief laugh or light comment that mirrors his energy. These small gestures are powerful. Jung would call this integration, honoring the interaction, without projecting need or insecurity. You are present, aware, and emotionally intelligent, understanding projection. Remember, Jung taught that we often project our unconscious onto others. Sometimes when you sense attraction, you may wonder, am I imagining it? Or is he really interested? This is a natural projection. By observing his combined signals, eyes, voice, posture, energy, you create a clearer picture than relying on intuition alone. Eyes that linger, brighten, or soften. Voice that warms, hesitates, or shifts unconsciously. Body aligned, leaning, open, subtly mirroring your movements. Energy that pulls toward you, magnetic and attuned. When all these converge, the projection risk diminishes. You're seeing his unconscious truth reflected consistently. The power of emotional safety. A man who greets you with intention and presence is often seeking emotional safety. He wants to know he can show up without judgment, ridicule, or pressure. Your grounded response signals that safety. You don't need to overperform or chase validation. Simply hold space for the energy he's offering. Jung emphasized the importance of creating a conscious space for the unconscious to emerge. In relationships, This means allowing vulnerability to be expressed without controlling it. When you respond with calm presence, his unconscious can reveal deeper layers over time. Everyday moments as emotional anchors. Not all expressions of attraction are grand or dramatic. Often it's the quiet moments, the hey that feels warm, the eyes that meet yours a second longer, the subtle nod, the brief touch that build real intimacy. These small gestures become emotional anchors. Jung would describe them as symbols of connection. The repeated acknowledgement of your presence reinforces your importance in his unconscious mind. Over time, these anchors create a stable foundation for deeper emotional and romantic engagement. Intuition as a guide. Your intuition is a powerful tool, especially when combined with observation. Jung called intuition one of the 4 key psychological functions, a way the unconscious communicates with consciousness. When you feel warmth, curiosity, or care radiating from a greeting, it is often an accurate perception of his unconscious energy. The trick is to remain grounded. Feel the pull, but don't overinterpret it. Notice the signs, acknowledge them, and allow the interaction to unfold naturally. Your intuition, when practiced, becomes a reliable compass in reading attraction. The wholeness of interaction. Jung believed in the process of individuation, becoming whole by integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche. In relationships, this plays out in recognizing both his unconscious signals and your conscious response. By integrating observation, intuition, and presence, you create a space where genuine connection can flourish. You're no longer chasing clarity. You're participating in the energy exchange consciously and intentionally. Closing thought. The quiet power of a greeting. When a man is crazy about you, his greeting, his eyes, his voice, his body, his energy carries the truth. And your response can either amplify or mute that truth. Look into his eyes and hold presence. Listen to the subtle shifts in his voice. Observe his body and the alignment of his energy. Mirror and acknowledge without overextending. Jung would remind us that this is not manipulation. It is conscious interaction. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. By recognizing the unconscious signals he reveals, you illuminate the connection, bringing clarity and presence to both of you. When you respond with grounded grace and intuition, something remarkable happens. The greeting becomes more than a word. It becomes an unspoken conversation of hearts and souls, a silent acknowledgement of mutual recognition and interest. The moment is no longer fleeting. It's a foundation for deeper emotional intimacy, trust, and attraction. And that is the ultimate secret of a man's greeting. When you know how to read it, you don't have to question his feelings. You simply see them, feel them, and respond in kind. The energy he brings is a reflection of his unconscious desire, and your presence is the conscious acknowledgement that validates it. Together, this creates a subtle yet undeniable dance of connection. Quiet, profound, and transformative. If you enjoyed exploring the hidden language of attraction and uncovering the unconscious signals in greetings, don't forget to subscribe to Psych Lens for more deep dives into psychology, relationships, and the mind. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a single word in the comments that describes what you noticed most in this video. Was it eyes, voice, energy, or something else? Let's see which word captures your attention. Hit that subscribe button, tap the bell icon to stay updated, and share your word below. Your insight might even inspire the next video.